Google has recently released a massive new feature called AI Max. AI Max is a game changer for Google advertisers and for search campaigns specifically. And in this video, I'm going to show you what AI Max is, how it works, and discuss whether or not you should use it. So to help me explain what AI Max actually is, I've got Google's announcement article up about it. And there's a few things here that I want to highlight that I think are really interesting, and we can combine those in talking about AI Max more broadly and going into the detail of what it actually means, when you should use it, all that sort of stuff, right? So we start by going through the opening line of this article, because I think this is quite interesting. So Google said here, introducing AI Max for search campaigns. That's the first thing to note. This is for search campaigns. A comprehensive suite of targeting and creative enhancements that bring the best of Google AI to help you take the search campaigns to the next level. Now, those two things there, targeting and creative enhancements, are the things to focus on. And that could be something relatively minor, or, as is the case here, really significant major changes. So let's go into the detail and sort of drill down on those two things. So with AI Max, there are a number of things that us Google advertisers, should we choose to use it, we'll talk more about that in a minute. Should we choose to use it, we are handing over to Google, saying, look, instead of us doing this, we're going to go ahead and allow you to do this for us. The first one of those is keyword targeting. So with AI Max, Google will do all the keyword targeting for you. They will work out who to put your ads in front of, what is likely to get you the best results based on the data that they have. And this is quite a significant step. It is also a sort of natural next step from what we've been seeing over the last few years. So Google has been wanting us as advertisers to hand over more of the keyword targeting to Google over the last few years. So for example, they've emphasized using broad match keywords and combining that with smart bidding so that Google can go out and get you as many purchases or leads as possible for the best possible pricing, giving Google a lot of flexibility in terms of which searches cause your ads to be shown. So I feel like this is a natural continuation of that, and saying, look, advertisers, hands off, you guys get in the way and don't create the most optimal setup when it comes to keyword targeting. Our AI can do it better. And they have some data that shows that on average, that's going to be the case. There may still obviously be cases where you want to have more control over the specific keywords that you target. And I've talked before about still using exact match and phrase match keywords, not always going with broad match in specific scenarios. And I think that will continue to be something that some advertisers at least want to do. So that's a process that's been happening. And this is where we sort of naturally got to is Google's now going to handle the keywords. How are they going to do that? Well, you still need to provide obviously URLs, like where you're going to be sending people. You need to have a website, hopefully with relevant information on it. And Google is then going to take the information from your website and use that to inform which keywords to target, which search terms to put ads in front of. And it's going to operate very much based on that way. And I should just quickly highlight that, making sure the content on your website is relevant part, because this is only going to work if your website is relevant to the products and services that you sell. You want to do that anyway, but it just emphasizes the important in case you're thinking, yeah, okay, this such and such could do with an update. And we all get there, right? You set something up, you leave it for a few years, you come back, you're like, okay, we need to go ahead and update this, right? So just wanted to highlight that. So I'm going to touch on the creative enhancement section in a second, because that's another huge part of this, but a few other things to mention around this keyword setup. If you use AI Max, you're not going to have keyword inputs as an advertiser, but you can still use negative keyword lists. So if there are things that you want to exclude and you want to say, look, I just don't want my ads appearing for searches that include that or related to that, you can still have some control over that. So it's not quite as simple as just completely handing over all keyword targeting, because you can still have input on the negative side of things, but that's only going to have so much of an impact, and Google choosing the keywords that you're going to target in the first place is very interesting and quite a big step for a lot of advertisers. Right, we'll talk more about that in a second, but let's move on to the next part, which is the creative enhancement section. I've got some notes that I want to talk about here. So with AI Max, not only will Google handle all of the keyword targeting for you, they will also handle the ad copy writing for you. And again, quite similarly to what I talked about with the keywords, this is sort of the natural next step, because we've had automatically generated assets for quite a while. When you set up a search campaign and you enter in your website URL, Google will use that to make a load of recommendations around headlines, descriptions, even other ad assets like site links and call out extensions and other elements to a responsive search ad. So clearly AI Max is using the same or similar technology to that. But with AI Max, you aren't the filter. You aren't the one in control of that, going through each individual element and deciding whether to use or whether to not use. And that's a big step for a lot of Google advertisers. Like, a lot of both these two things require a huge amount of trust from the advertiser in Google's AI, and we'll talk a bit more about that later on. So for a while now, I've recommended use the automatically generated assets. Google has gotten better and better at that. A lot of their suggestions will be your best performers, because remember, Google's not only got the data based on your website and perhaps your ad account if you've run ads already, but they've also got tons of data from other advertisers. They know what sort of language gets people to take action, and this is all factored in. But I have said that when you're doing that, be the filter, because there will often be recommendations and assets that are automatically generated that you look at as the business owner, as the advertiser, and go, well, that's not quite right for our brand, or no, that's not quite right. A lot of them will be good, but it's still hit and miss. There are some that are bad, and therefore you act as the filter and you remove the bad ones. With AI Max, you won't be able to do that. So, like I said, huge amount of trust required, both at the keyword and at the ad creation stage. I do think that a lot of beginners in particular will find this very appealing. Think, hang on, I don't need to write my own ads, they'll be written for me. I don't need to work out keyword targeting, that's been done for me. Fantastic. More advanced advertisers that have more experience and more used to doing what I've described and acting as the filter and having more control are probably going to struggle with this a little bit more. But again, a very interesting new development. And I should say that just like with the keyword targeting, the creative generation, so basically the ad creation process that Google will do automatically for you as part of AI Max, is not going to be a complete black box. So Google's actually in the process of rolling out reporting improvements for both Search and Performance Max campaigns. So we'll be able to see performance at the asset level. So if Google is automatically generating headlines, descriptions, other ad extensions for you, you'll be able to see, okay, how does that actually perform, and check that out, and we'll have the data for those. So whilst you might not have an input on creating any of this stuff, you can take a look at how things are performing and choose to remove stuff. You can say, just like with the negative keywords, right? It's kind of similar. You can say, no, I don't want that asset to be used. You can remove certain assets. But obviously that is something that's done after the fact, okay? After it's been created, probably after it's been served to people. So with this feature, you are going to have to trust as a Google advertiser, and not just trust, but I also think accept that sometimes some of the assets generated are not going to be ideal for your business. There'll be headlines, there'll be descriptions that you wouldn't have written, you wouldn't necessarily have approved, and they are going to be put in front of people. Now, that might be a price you're willing to pay in order to get access to the improved performance that Google's likely to be able to generate with this. Well, we already have some data, and once that's extrapolated, I think it will help improve performance across the board. But that is something that advertisers need to get their head around and need to accept if they want to use AI Max in the first place, which of course is not mandatory. In a second, I'm going to talk about why Google has created AI Max in the first place. But first, I want to quickly let you know about our done-for-you Google Ads services. So my company can create, manage, and optimize your Google Ad campaigns for you. We can take that workload off your hands or off the hands of another agency if they're not producing great results for you, and will almost certainly help you get better results. We're very much on top of all the latest features like this, the new best practices. If you're finding it hard to keep up, which a lot of Google advertisers are, we can just manage all this for you. If that sounds interesting, there is a link in the video description. You can go ahead, click on that, book in a free, no obligation call with one of my team members to find out more, and hopefully we get a chance to work together. So we also need to talk about why Google has created AI Max and why they've added this new feature. And one of the major motivations for doing so is that search behavior has changed from users. It's going to continue to change, and Google needs to update and change its search advertising product, which is basically what search campaigns on Google Ads are, in order to keep up with that. So if you think about how search behavior has changed, right? People are using traditional Google search less and less. People are more likely to use other tools like ChatGPT, or even if they're doing so within Google, we're seeing more and more AI-based results. And one of the things that comes from that is that instead of searching for short-term keywords, as people would have done many years ago, the vast majority of the time. So if someone wants to buy a pair of red shoes 20 years ago when they're searching on Google, they may well have just put in red shoes. And then it's quite easy as an advertiser to target that if you sell red shoes, because the search is pretty consistent across a lot of people. It's short, it's obvious, you advertise to that, you can look to move on. Now, Google search has gotten more sophisticated, especially now with AI results being a big part of that, the search experience from the user becomes a lot more conversational. There's a lot more back and forth. So people are much more likely to search for something much longer. They'll say, I'm looking for a pair of red shoes that will be perfect for my niece's wedding. It's going to go with a blue dress. Would you wear a blue dress, red shoes? Probably not. But, lots more information. It's going to be in the summer. I don't want it to be, I've got this size foot, all that sort of stuff. And when you get an AI-based search result, users are far more likely to then go back with further clarifications. No, that's not quite right. How about this? So you can see how those much longer searches combined with there sort of being a conversational search experience and not just the one search, I didn't find what I'm looking for, bounce back out to Google, search for something slightly different as people used to do. But that next search or the next input from the user being additive to the previous search, going, no, that's not quite right, I want it like this instead. That makes it really difficult for us advertisers to create a keyword list that incorporates that sort of stuff. And that has been done to some extent with broad match keywords combined with smart bidding. But this is the next step. And this is designed to keep up with this, where Google's basically saying, you're not going to be able to just produce keywords, a keyword list with keywords that perfectly target people's searches, because that's just unfeasible with the new search behavior. And this is the way that we're going to go ahead and set this up. So that's a really big part of it. Google's also motivated, I think, by simplifying the Google ad platform, because particularly for beginners, it can be really complicated, all the different types of campaigns, all the different elements. If they can introduce features that go, right, that part that you used to have to worry about and that part that you used to have to worry about, don't worry about it. We got you. We can do this for you. That's going to help particularly beginner advertisers, and it's going to help Google as well retain those people that first open a Google ad account and don't just go, this is too complicated, run off, which is going to be a lot of people currently, and AI Max certainly helps with that too. So should you use AI Max if you have it in your ad account? By the way, not all ad accounts have it yet. This is in the process of being rolled out, but I think by September, just about every Google ad account is supposed to have it, so it's not going to be too long. So like all new things and new big changes and announcement from Google when it comes to their ad platform, there is a very mixed reaction in amongst the Google advertiser community. There are people that really don't like the idea of this. They don't like the lack of control, don't want to use it. That's fine, don't have to. And then there are people that are really excited by this, thinking either that's going to make the platform much easier to understand, or that's going to save me as a Google advertiser tons of time so that I can focus on other elements where I can gain a competitive advantage. If Google could just handle all that lengthy, time-consuming keyword targeting research process for me and do the ad writing as well, that sounds great. So I definitely fall more on the side of this is a good thing. And I think we have to embrace these changes. We have to recognize as Google advertisers that if the user experience is changing, then how we advertise needs to change as well. And that's a really big part of this. So AI Max is currently on an opt-in setup. So it's not on by default, and you certainly don't have to use it. So if you don't want to use it, you don't have to. You can choose to opt in, like I said, once you get it in your ad account. Not all ad accounts have it yet. Once you do get it, let's say you are running search campaigns and they are producing a good return for you, a nice return on ad spend, I would definitely look to give this a go. I think there's a limited downside. There's a caveat to that, I'll explain in a second, but I think there's a limited downside to giving this a go. Now, if you do want to test this, I'd recommend that you don't mess with any search campaigns that are performing really well right now. Don't go ahead and change those over. Better to test in new campaigns. You could either test them alongside each other or test one and then pause that for a while and test the other option and see how it performs. And you may well find that this does outperform or maybe not, and then you can be led by the data. And if we jump back to Google's article, we've actually got some data to suggest that you may well see an improvement in performance when you use AI Max as opposed to more traditional campaigns, because Google's already done a bunch of testing, like they do with all new features before they roll them out. And they've got some data here from that testing to say the data already show that advertisers that activate AI Max in search campaigns will typically see 14% more conversions or conversion value at a similar CPA/return on ad spend. So 14% is certainly nothing to be ignored. If you can just click a few buttons and get a 14% improvement, that's fantastic. And also going forward, if you see a 14% improvement from a campaign that is much easier to create and set up than one that requires you to do all the keyword research and create a keyword list and write all the ads, then that's also a great extra win. Google on this article, by the way, goes on to, and you can find this and well worth reading through. They go on to talk about some specific examples of improvement in performance, like L'Oreal and MyConnect. L'Oreal saw a 31% lower cost per conversion, for example, and MyConnect saw a 13% lower cost per action by turning on AI Max and a 30% increase in conversion specifically from net new queries. So they've given some examples, they've done some testing, but like always, you need to test for your specific business and work out, is this going to work better for me or is it not? One thing to note on that, if you do decide to give this a go and you find that it doesn't perform as well as regular search campaigns, that doesn't mean you don't have to carry on using AI Max. You can actually say, this didn't perform as well, I'm going to stop using it. But don't let that be the end of your AI Max journey, is probably what I'd recommend. We've seen this happen. We saw this with Performance Max. These features get better over time because so much of it is data-led, the AI gets smarter, and if it's not the better option for you now, it may well be in 6 months or it may well be in 12 months. So just make sure that you retest. An easy retest to do, right? To set up an AI Max campaign to test against your existing campaigns because, well, AI is doing a lot of the work. So it's not too time consuming and definitely something to give a go, I think. Well, there is one caveat to that, and that's if you're in a business where you need to be really careful what you include in your marketing and your advertising. So a number of industries would fall into that category. Anything finance related, legal stuff. There are all sorts of requirements of things you can and can't say. And we've worked with clients in all different industries, and some of them, like, they never sort of query anything from a regulatory standpoint when it comes to what we include in ads, and others are like really hot on it and have to get everything checked and totally understandable, different regulations in different locations for different industries. If you are in one of those, you probably need to be really careful with this, because if Google's going to go out and create a load of assets for you, assets being headlines, descriptions, extensions, you really don't want to accidentally violate some sort of policy because of what Google has automatically generated for you. So I think I would be very wary in that space giving this a go if you're in one of those industries. And there may need to be refinements on the product where you can have a bit more control, or maybe, you're just never going to be able to do that. And you're always going to have to pre-approve elements, before it goes out and actually gets put in front of people when things are automatically generated. So just something I wanted to quickly note in case you jump on this and think, okay, need to be careful with this. As we test this more, I'll share more information. Make sure you subscribe for that, because this is relatively new right now. Not all our accounts have it. Some do. We'll be testing, and I'll certainly let you know in future videos. I've got a couple of other points that I want to mention about AI Max, but first, I want to let you know about Hyros. Hyros is fantastic tracking and attribution software and can really help you improve your Google Ad results. It's a software that all the big players in the industry use, including myself. I use it to track results for my own ads across multiple platforms, including Google Ads, and all my organic results as well, which is super helpful. So if someone, for example, comes through and books a call for our done-for-you services, I can see exactly where that person came from. This is particularly important if you're running ads across multiple channels or generating customers organically as well. Without accurate data, you are flying blind, and knowledge is power. So let me show you how important this is. So I'm here in my Hyros dashboard. I'm going to take a look at the data and the results that Hyros has been able to track and compare those to what I'm seeing within my Google Ad account for the same campaign. So this is a Google Ad campaign that we've been running. We're only looking at data for a few days here, but it really demonstrates what's going on. So you can see Hyros has registered 6 leads generated, a cost per lead of just over £15, 75 clicks. It's just a branded search campaign, hence why the CTR is 30%. So not a huge amount going on, but representative, right? So that's the data we can see within Hyros. If I jump over to my Google Ad account, we look at the exact same campaign, same time frame. We've got May 21st to 27th. You can see a lot of the data matches up, right? We've got 75 clicks, 30% CTR just like before. But if we scroll over, you can see that Google has only registered 3 conversions as opposed to the 6. So it's registered half the number of conversions. And I can tell you, looking at the back-end data, that the 6 from Hyros is the accurate number. And that's why this is so important, because we might look at the Google Ads data and come to the wrong conclusion, think this isn't profitable, turn stuff off when we shouldn't, but we can verify it with the Hyros data and make much better, more informed decisions and end up with better overall ad results because of it. So if you want to improve the performance of your Google Ad campaigns and be able to see exactly where your leads and sales are coming from, go ahead and sign up to Hyros. There is a link in the video description. I've also seen quite a lot of comments and had messages from advertisers that are worried about this. And basically what they're worried about is that they will be replaced. AI Max is another step towards Google just handling everything, a big one, handling everything, and advertisers are not going to be necessary, and that sort of narrative. I don't think that is likely to happen. We've had AI integration for years where Google is handling more and more of what us advertisers had to do. And during that time period, the demand for Google advertisers, Google advertising expertise has certainly not disappeared. In fact, it has increased. And I predict it will continue to increase as the platform becomes more efficient. If the platform is better at connecting the right advertiser, the right ad, the right business with the person searching, which is exactly what Google's looking to do, well, that makes that search interaction more profitable for the advertiser, makes it more profitable for Google, makes the user, the searcher, happier because they got what they wanted, ended in a transaction. And that basically benefits everyone within this space. And if that happens, people will see increased profitability, more advertisers will join the platform, they will potentially spend more money as the platform becomes efficient. We've seen this happen already over many years. I expect it to continue to happen going forward. So I actually think the demand for Google advertisers will continue to increase. And as we've seen these new AI features, the platform hasn't necessarily gotten simpler. Yes, Google can handle certain things for us now that we had to do manually ourselves previously. But if you're a beginner and you go into Google Ad account, it's still pretty complicated, right? So I think there's definitely going to be a premium place still on Google advertising expertise. I personally welcome these AI improvements because if Google can handle a lot of things that used to take up a lot of time, like I don't want to spend ages producing a keyword list based on research. Like if Google can handle that for me, fantastic. That frees up my time, frees up my team's time to focus on other elements that we can work harder on and that potentially have a lot more leverage and can get us much better results on the other end, right? So things like improving your offers, such a big thing that Google's AI within the platform is not going to be able to, like that has to come from the business, right? To be able to provide the offer and actually be something that they're comfortable with. Things like brand positioning, again, this is more of like a broader marketing thing. Or we can get more specific, like in creative, particularly creative that involves influencers or creators, something I'm really hot on. Doesn't necessarily apply to search, but other parts of the Google Ads networks and other Google Ad campaign types. These can be things that you can work on that can have enormous improvement in results. So sort of let the AI do the things that AI is better at, and that frees up time for us advertisers to do the things that advertisers are better at. I also want to, on this point, just highlight the fact that the pace of change is not going to slow down. We have seen a lot of change. We are going to continue to see a lot of change. This is being led in large part by user activity changing. As that continues to change, and it will, as more people change their search behavior, then Google's going to need to update its ad platform to match with that. Google wants to continue to dominate this space. They dominated search space for a long, long time. They want to continue to do so. They're in a great position to do so, all the funding data in the world. But it means us as advertisers, we've got to be ready to keep up. Like, things are going to keep changing. Things are going to keep happening. Best practices now will probably be different in 6 months' time, probably different 6 months later on. I will do my best to keep you up to date. Make sure you subscribe. I release videos with all that sort of information. But yeah, just something to brace yourself for and be aware of. It makes it a very exciting industry to work in. Whenever there's change, there's always opportunity because some people jump on it, some people don't. That creates opportunity for people that jump on it. Not necessarily saying you have to start using AI Max, but for businesses that don't have major concerns around the assets that will be put in front of people without prior approval, I think definitely something that's worth testing. And speaking of all the changes, next I strongly recommend you check out this video, because in that video I go through the most important Google Ads settings today. There are loads of things within Google Ad campaigns at the account level that you need to know about, that you might want to turn on, turn off, some stuff that's set up by default, probably not how you'd like it to be set up. And I run through those in this video. So if you haven't already, go ahead and give it a watch.